Hey, how are you? I was going through some things in storage and I happened across some old electronics. And now, to me, they're not old, but I think compared to what we use now, like they are pretty old. And I'll show them to you. First is an old mp3 player. And this used to play music, or it still does play music. The battery is dead, and I think if I charge it, then I can listen to whatever music I may have stored on it. So, look, here's the little home button. These little buttons on the bottom are for controlling the music you want to listen to. To play, here's where the power goes. Here's the on-off switch. Here. And yeah, the volume control, and that's where the earphones plug in. And then there's a little clip. Yeah. And I don't know how much it holds. I think, man, if I had to guess, maybe like 2 gigabit, maybe. And at the time, this was a lot. Like you could hold so much music on just 2 gigabits of memory. And I liked these so much that I actually have two. And I can't remember if it's because like I ran out of space on one and so I had to buy another, or if it's because I it's so small I lost one, couldn't find it, and I said I really need another one, so I bought another. Maybe I'll charge the battery and maybe play the music for you that's on these in another video. So these are mp3 players I used to listen to. Another thing I used to do with these, I used to take these to my college lectures in like the really big auditoriums in the lecture halls, and I would sit in the front row, like the front row center seat, where nobody else sat because everyone liked to kind of either sit all out in the sides or sit really far in the back, so that way they could like text on their phone or take a nap or play games on their computer. I would sit front row, center seat, and like I'd be looking right at the professor as they're doing the lecture to everybody else, and I would record the lectures so that way I could take these back and re-listen to the lecture to study and help me prepare for the exams. So yeah, I might still have the recordings on these. I'll have to find out. Okay. So another thing I found is, are you ready for this? I got this a few, well, years later. An iPod Touch. Yeah, and I forget which generation iPod Touch this is. I think it's maybe a second or a third, but it's in a plastic case. And this plastic case is so beat up that I taped it with tape. And it's not just like packaging tape or clear tape. I used like athletes tape that like boxers and fighters use to tape up their wrists. Look how much tape I put just on this little plastic uh, iPod case just to keep the clamp shut and just to keep it protected, because if you drop one of these, they're not as durable. They were very delicate and you could easily break these if they fell. So it was important to get a case for it. But anyway, battery's dead on this, so if I charge it, I could maybe turn it on. And yeah, iPod Touch had music. You could do email, use the internet, watch videos on it. Um, the simple stuff. I used to play games on it, but Oh, and of course, I had the camera. Look at the camera on this compared to the cameras that we have now. Look at that. It's so simple, but it got the job done. Oh, and why is there tape on the top of this? Well, it's because I did break this one because this was sitting flat on a surface without a case on it, and I happened to be holding something or doing something above it. I can't remember, and whatever I was holding slipped and fell out of my hand and hit and dropped right on top of the iPod. So that's why the bottom you don't see any tape, but the top you do see like a perfectly cut piece of tape that I used to fix this so I could keep using it. I'll show this one to you someday too. And okay, so I got the mp3 player, I got the iPod, I got one more thing to show you, okay? Ready? Okay, yeah. It's a phone. Look at this phone. Isn't this cool? Okay, first of all, look at how small and thin it is. Look at that. It's smaller than the iPod. See that? See, look. See, smaller than the iPod. And all this did was basically call, and I could do text messaging on it, and I think I could maybe check email, maybe, and that was really it. It did have internet browsing, I think, with the most simple browser. It's not a touch screen. Like, this screen is just to display phone numbers and text, and you would use this little square button on the bottom for navigation, and these little rectangle buttons to go forward or backwards on the web pages and stuff. And then your keypad to call and put text in through the number and the keypad if you needed. Wow. And I picked this one specifically because it was only like $19 at the phone store, and at the time you could buy like an iPhone 1, like the first iPhone, or a BlackBerry, or other like Samsung or LG phones, or you could get things like Nokia. there were like gimmick phones that would like sort of do one special thing but also make calls, right? So maybe a phone would be really good at playing music, like an mp3 player like this, and then whoever made it said, well, let's put a SIM card on the inside and let it make calls. And so that's what that did. And then there were other ones called like Engage and some others that were really kind of for playing games and texting and using the internet. And they were also like phones, but people really use them more for anything besides actually calling and talking to people. But yeah, this when did I get this? Had to be 2007. So that may seem like a long time ago, but I can actually remember going into the store and picking this one out. I said I told the person, I said, I want the smallest, cheapest phone because it's gonna fit in my pocket and I don't want a big, bulky phone to have to carry around. And that was another thing about some of these phones, is they were like very, very thick. You might notice that phones now are very slim and thin and flat. Well, You can of course look up what phones used to look like many years ago, and some of these were almost like hot dogs with how thick they were, and some of them would open up in half like a book, and there would be like a screen on the inside with a keypad. And but I didn't want anything fancy. I just wanted something that I could make calls with, because I needed something to actually call people and talk to them. And the other thing about these was that the phone plan that I bought, because it only had phone minutes on, or I would only use it for phone calls and some texting, I would pay by the minute that you would call and talk. Could you imagine that? Like paying by the minute that you talk on the phone. Wow. And then with text messages, I would pay by the text message. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine how many you might send, and each one might cost you like 30 cents? Because that's what it used to cost me. It used to cost me like 30 cents, or 35 cents or 40, just to send a text message. So when I would send one, I would send a message. I would send a message, but whether I sent just like one letter, like K, or like a smiley face or something, I was charged like 35 cents, whether it was just a smiley face or like a whole paragraph. So sometimes I would text someone, like if someone asked me, hey, what time is whatever, right? And I might text back like 6 p.m. I would also say, hey, also I was thinking something today. It would really be cool if maybe we blah 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 or something else, just to make that 30-cent text kind of worth sending. And when each month, when I would like prepay for the credit, like the credit to use that the texting and the calls would use up, right? And each month it might be like $25 or something like that. So each month I pay $25, and then I get $25 worth of calls and texting. So maybe what might happen is, toward the end of the month, right? If I didn't do a lot of calling or texting, then I would have like all of these minutes that would, or all of this credit that would not roll over. It's like use it or lose it. So I would have like all of these credits and like 3 days to do it. So at the end of those months, I would like sometimes spend like a day, maybe 2 days, like just calling a whole bunch of people just to use those minutes. Like, hey, how you doing? And just having conversations, like spend a whole evening, sometimes two, just using it, because otherwise, like, you don't get, you spend the money and you don't get to use it. And then another thing that would happen is, let's say toward the end of the month, if I actually did have to make a lot of calls and do a lot of texting, that I used up all my credits and I'm getting close to that 25. Well, if I need more, then like I would have to buy it in kind of bundles, right? Like an extra $10 or an extra like $15 or something else to kind of keep you going with the credit. And I mean, they kind of get you to where is like, if you have $25 worth of calls and texts, and you might go like $2 over, they might charge you those $2 over, but then they give you a surcharge on top of that to say, well, you went over and you didn't buy the extra minutes, so we're gonna charge you 5. So it's like, oh geez, you really try to not go over the minutes each month for whatever you pay for in your plan. And what might happen sometimes is toward the end of the month, I'll get like really close and I'll say, okay, I'm not going to call anyone. I'm not going to text anyone for 2 days because in 2 days I get like $25 of new credit. So I'm only going to use the phone to call and text in an emergency. And in those 2 days, like someone might text me, like to me. I didn't text them or call them, but they texted me, and then they cost me 35 cents from the credit that I'm trying to save the next 2 days. And I'm like, come on, don't couldn't this wait like 2 days? Wow, so much has changed. Yeah, this is what I used to use right here. Wow. And now here I am, leaving you these little messages on uh, on a new phone that's that can do more than like all of this together. It's amazing. And your future is amazing too, because who knows, the the devices and the things that you use every day right now, this second, in a few years, you might look back on them, and you might look back on them the way that you're looking at this right now and say, wow, this only used to do that. And it cost that much? Yeah. I'm gonna need you to show me how to use them. I love you.